And welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the Penscast Recap Show. It is Saturday night, January 13th, and the Penguins just wrapped up a game on the road to with the Carolina Hurricanes. And this one, much like the game just 2 nights ago, ends in an overtime loss for the Penguins with a late tying goal to rescue a point, but the Penguins fall 3-2. And as is typical with our show, before we dive into the scoring on this game, we will hand it over to Snail for his initial thoughts on what took place this evening in Raleigh.
Yeah, my initial thoughts, I guess, coming into the game was that the Penguins never have an easy time playing against the Carolina Hurricanes. The fellas over there in Carolina have constructed a team and a playing style that makes it difficult to play against them every single night of the week. Uh, and I am so sick of seeing Rod Brindamore. Like, I just wish that the Penguins shoved it down or shoved it up his you know what this game. He's a great coach. He's a phenomenal coach. My being sick of him just comes from. I mean, when you're successful for a long time, you just start to rub people the wrong way. He's just this Johnny Tryhard. He's always chewing the gum. He's in the bet. He's in such good shape, and I just was hoping that the Penguins could just really, give him the business tonight. But I mean, it was a classic Carolina Penguins game. I mean, there was missed calls by the refs. There was a lot of special teams opportunities. Um, Robbie, you used a term earlier that's I think extremely accurate. The Carolina Hurricanes just clog up the neutral zone and they just suffocate you. I think you said they choke out teams offensively. That's exactly what we saw tonight. Uh, I was really hoping to see the depth scoring kind of keep rolling over, but I feel like tonight the only line that had anything going every time they hit the ice was Sid's line, and they moved Raquel off of it, they moved Russ up to it. I was so frustrated by the end of this game, Robbie. I was telling you earlier, I don't know if I was in a mental headspace to be able to do this recap so quickly after the game, but it's all good. Let's get into the scoring. It's always let's just say this is what the NHL wants. These games between Carolina and Pittsburgh, they provide the entertainment, they get the blood flow and the juices going. So let's get to the scoring.
Yeah, and as has been kind of a theme with the Penguins recently, and maybe we can touch on this later, is another bad start from the Penguins in this game. And it's not even necessarily the goals started coming in right off the bat, but the Penguins were dreadful in the opening 20 minutes, and especially early on. Tristan Jarry has to make a big time save within the opening seconds of this game, and he did everything he could to hold the fort in the beginning, but the Hurricanes' relentless early pressure pays off with 2 goals inside of 9 minutes. Brett Pesce at 6'12", his second of the season. You'll hear that name again later. Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov get the assist. It's 1-0 Carolina after a pretty much relentless attack from them. And then at 9:04, Jordan Martinook gets a goal from in front, his fourth of the season from Jalen Chatfield. It's 2-0 within the first 10 minutes of this game. And that's how the score would remain until the third period. The Penguins did settle down after the first 20 and were able to fight back into it and kind of start putting pressure on the Hurricanes. It looked like Antti Ranta was going to absolutely steal this game. He had a tremendous night, 38 saves on 40 shots. He made an incredible save on a Crosby shot when it was still 2-0. But the Penguins do find a way to break through at 6:45 of the third period. Jake Gensel, his 19th of the season from the aforementioned Crosby and Brian Rust. It's 2-1 Carolina with a lot of hockey left, and it would take to the very end of this game another empty net situation, and the Penguins do find a way to pull even. 1907, Brian Rust back in the score sheet, his 11th of the season. This one from Carlson and Letang. It's 2-2, and the Penguins once again, similar to Thursday night, find themselves back in overtime after a late comeback. This time you hope they can maybe find a way to steal that second point, but unfortunately, a bad change by Sidney Crosby and a kind of a soft goal by Tristan Jarry after standing on his head most of the night. At 1:41 of the overtime period, Brett Pesce, his second of the game and third of the year, This one coming from Teuvo Teravainen and Seth Jarvis gives the Hurricanes the extra point and the win in this game, and draws them a little bit closer uh, to the New York Rangers for the top of the division. Brings them within one, while the Penguins do get a point and remain right in the thick of this entire race here. So, yeah, the Penguins battle back, get a point, but in the end, it is the Hurricanes getting the better of them. And we can talk a lot about um, Antti Ranta was great tonight. The Hurricanes do everything to choke the life out of you when they have a lead. But the Penguins got to find a way to get these games started better at this point. It's becoming definitely more of a theme rather than a one or two off. It just seems like every night when we do these recaps, we're always talking about an opposing goal starting the game within the first five or so minutes.
I know, right? I feel like is that what gets them up, gets them going? Is they need to be digging themselves out of a hole to really kind of start trying. I don't think that's actually the case, but from the last couple of games, you'd think that is just because they're always clawing from behind. It seems. Nonetheless, they're getting it done and they're getting a point out of these games. But I don't know if they forgot or not. There's 2 points available in every game, and getting to overtime is not a win. So sometimes, and this isn't the first time it's happened. This game and last game, this isn't the first examples of this where it just seems like they push and push and push, and they really put it to the other team just to tie the game, and then once they've tied it, this is another thing too that I think people maybe I need to remind myself of this is when they're pushing and countering and forechecking and they finally break through and they get a tying goal or maybe even they get a 1 goal lead, that team has been on their heels for so long that it's inevitable that that team is also going to push back with their own forecheck, their own set play off a face off, and they're going to strike and get their chance. And then sometimes Jari's been battling and battling, making numerous saves, standing tall, standing in there, just doing everything he can to keep the puck out of the net. And then it only, the other team gets a good shot and it goes by him. And it's just like, it's hard. You can't blame Jari because it's like he kept you in it for 40 minutes to tie the game up. And then bad change by Sid. He's human. He's a heart candidate, but he's still human. And it's a fast paced game out there. Overtime breeds chaos. It just takes that one and it's so deflating. But it's important to remember the team you're playing. Like you said, Carolina, they're a great team and they've been a perennial great team for a long time. They're coached by someone that I think honestly could probably still play in the league. He's in such good shape, and the way he played the game, he had I don't know. That's neither here nor there. But they're coached well. They've got a great leader in Rod Brindamore. I don't know. It's after a game like this, it kind of leaves I think the team and us scratching our heads a little bit, like what happened there. But the Penguins do remain in the thick of this wild card hunt, which I think is important to remember. Like Carolina's chasing New York right now. I think you said they're within 1 point or 2 points of first place.
Yeah, they're within a point now.
Within a point. So there you go. The Penguins have been digging themselves out of holes since the beginning of the season. It would be nice to start the game with a little bit more urgency. And we've seen them do that. They're not incapable. I mean, wasn't it at the beginning of the year, Sidney Crosby was just torching teams off the beginning, right off the bat there. So it'd be nice to see that. But the Penguins want to stress us out and kill us early. That's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all of that. The Penguins right now, they stand on they are at exactly the 41 game mark. So tonight was the middle point of the season. So
where are they at right now? Oh, sorry, you're about to say it.
Yeah, they're 20, 15, and 6, good for 46 points on the season. That's a total of 92 points over the course of 82 games. And last season, they ended with 91 points. So, right about the same pace they're playing at last season. To be honest, their goal differential is a little bit better. But one thing we talked about last season that kept them out of the playoffs was they lost 11 games in overtime or a shootout last year. So that is leaving 11 points on the board. If the Penguins win even 2 of those games, last year they are in the playoffs. Right now they sit at 6 overtime or shootout losses, meaning they are roughly slightly over the 11 pace that they finished with last year. So
Hmm.
again, you've left 6 points on the ice in these games. So if
Where does
you
6 point us put us right now?
so 6 points puts you at 52, which would put you tied with Philadelphia for second in the division or third in the division,
It's like,
but with
come on.
but within um, 2 points of the Rangers. So even if you win three of those games, you're sitting at 49. You're fourth in the division, ahead of the Islanders by a point. The Islanders, who have at some way have lost 10 overtime games in the first half of the season, which is a shockingly large number. Um, if I'm being honest, to the point where I'm kind of even a little bit taken aback by that number a little bit at this point. But neither here nor there at this point. The Penguins have to find a way if they're going to bother. Again, it's good they're getting points. Like a point, 1 point better than none, absolutely, especially against a division opponent. But at some point, when you get these games to overtime or a shootout, you need to find a way to every once in a while snag that second point. Because if the Penguins win in these last two games, they do all that comeback. If they find a way to win those games, they're at 48 points and they are tied with the Islanders for fourth in the division. And again, right in the again, not that they're not in the thick of things, but again, any point when the race is this tight, any point matters, and you just got to find a way to snag a few of these extra points when they're on the line sometimes. So. Yeah, not tonight is what it is. The Penguins do fight back and get a point. You like that, especially against a team that is historically very makes it miserable to try to come back. So you do show that resilience, but um, better starts, and you got to find a way in overtime to uh, get that extra point sometimes.
Yeah, so let's talk about a couple of points I wanted to bring out here too. Uh, they are missing Riley Smith from the lineup. Achari was a late scratch. Um, and he, not necessarily the depth scoring coming from Achari, but keeping bad things from happening in front of your own net. He's a great checker. He's a defensively minded, defensively sound fourth liner. Could be a third liner, I think. He was out tonight. I think we were missing him quite a bit. Missing Ludwig back there. We got P.O. Joseph, who I got to be honest with you. Like, I think I liked what I saw at P.O. Joseph in a puck moving position, maybe over the last year or two, but defensively, I just don't think he's got the weight and the frame to be like super effective in a defensive role. And I've been noticing that the last couple of games, he's easy to push off of pucks. I don't want to rip the guy apart or anything like that by any means. He's a good NHL. He's an NHL defenseman. Like,
Yeah.
but I think a guy like Ludwig back there, or even Ryan Shea, it's a shame that they weren't available for the game tonight, because I think I've been loving that Ludwig back there. I think that he's going to grow into a pretty good, solid third. Maybe necessarily not isolate him as a third pair, but kind of more of like a shutdown guy and a physical kind of a bruising defenseman. So, I mean, Riley Smith, he's, whether people want to agree or not that he makes an impact on that second line, I think the team is better with him on the second line than they are without him. So maybe with some, we got to remember the Penguins get that injury bug a couple of times a year, and they're kind of going through it right now. Luckily, they got Rust back, and I was happy to see him get moved up to that first line, because I think 5-on-5 they were like the best team in the league for a good portion of the season, were they not?
Who's that again? Say that again.
Rust and Rust on the first line was Sid and Jake.
Oh yeah, that line historically has been very good together, and it was no different this year when Russ was healthy. It's something about those three guys that it just works, and I think if you can get it together, even if it's not every shift, I think you got to throw that line out there, just because there's something when those three are on the ice together, they just seemingly find a way to make it happen.
So the Penguins, I think, it seems to be a recurring theme that they kind of, maybe the nights they start slow, They find themselves kind of clawing themselves back. Sid is having to do a tremendous amount of work, and it's only exactly halfway through the season, and he seems to be at times the only one with a burr in his saddle, really getting everything going, stirring the pot, just doing everything he can within his power to create opportunities to score. The trade deadline is still quite a ways away. I don't think it's anything to get too excited about now, but we're starting to hear rumblings. Would you say that the Penguins could use some scoring depth? Maybe Dubas throw him a lifeline earlier than the trade deadline. Like, do you think that that's something that's a possibility for this team? That may be something you'd be hoping or looking for Dubas to pull within the next like month and a half?
Oh, I think if the Riley Smith situation is longer term than what we're expecting, I definitely think you'll see a trade sooner rather than later, well before the trade deadline. Depending on just how long term is, I definitely think that um, you're absolutely looking at a situation where Dubas will make a move for a forward way before the trade deadline.
So I know of a top six type of forward. Actually, I'm not going to say top six. I know of a pretty effective forward that they could get for absolutely dirt cheap right now, who just got reinstated. Actually,
They're not
reinstated is the
bringing.
wrong.
They should not bring in Corey Perry.
You don't think
No,
so?
absolutely not. I'm not touching that with a 100-foot pole.
Okay,
Uh,
what?
nah,
Why?
I just don't think he fits into what the Penguins want to do. I'm just not. Again, it's great that he's reinstated, and hopefully he's worked through his issues. I just don't see him uh, fitting what the Penguins need to do. Again, if it'd have to be. I'd rather have Phil Kessel on the
Okay,
bottom
that's
six.
where I was going
Yeah,
next.
I'd rather have Phil Kessel. Um, Again, Phil's fresh. As fresh as a guy that's 30 some odd, almost 40 years old
As fresh
can
as a guy
be.
that looks like
Yeah,
Phil can be.
yes. So I'm not saying he's going to be out there skating 20, 23 minutes a night, but at this point, I don't see what a Phil Kessel addition uh, could hurt. Again, would be insanely cheap. Um, it fits with he's loved in Pittsburgh. Fits with kind of what they try to do. Has his shot first mentality. He could get some power play time. A guy like Kessel, I think at this point, you're going to only need a half a season out of him, basically. I say take a waiver and just shove him in that bottom six and um, see what he can do because I don't think he can be, at least from a depth scoring perspective, can't be any worse than what they have right now.
I think Phil on that third line with Drew O'Connor and Lars Eller might be absolutely money. Like it feels like that line could be really good at times, but
Mm-hmm.
they're just missing Carter on the third line right wing does not work. It's not the same. Throw in Zahorna on that line. I mean, Zahorna can kind of create some chaos in front of the net, and he's got some mitts. He's got a couple of things really working for him. But something to me about having three left-handed guys on the third line that all kind of Lars is a little bit more of a skill guy. Drew O'Connor's more of a just get to the net type of guy. Zahorna is kind of just like huge, just go create some chaos in front of the net. I think if you put Phil with his vision and his passing and his finishing ability, even at his age, Phil just seems to be like a missing ingredient on this team right now. I'm sure there's a lot of other players in the league that I'm sure Dubas could finagle a trade for. I'm sure there's lots of competent, good players out there. I keep hearing that Andrei Kuzmenko is available out in Vancouver. He's young. He's a Russian forward. I always wonder about what it'd be like if you gave Malkin a good, competent Russian winger. But Phil, I feel like we got to bring Phil back to Pittsburgh for this. I mean, Dubas tried to make the team younger, which he did, but I think they're still the oldest team in sports. I
Yeah.
just think at this point, let's be that Red Wings team from whatever year that was in the early 2000s. Like, just buy in. We're old. They're an old team. Bring in another good old veteran that knows how to get it done, and let's start stacking up the points. Let's start winning some games. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy. There's probably people out there that'll punch their steering wheel hearing that. Um, but I'm on board for let's bring Phil back to Pittsburgh. Let's get that train chugging.
Absolutely. I could get on board with that. Absolutely.
One more thing I wanted to touch on. I don't know if you saw these reports from what's his name? uh, Dollywall, Dollywall. He's a hockey. He's a sports guy. Anyways, I guess the price has been set for Jake
Oh,
Gensel.
I did see that. I saw that on Thursday or something like that, and I didn't know how much um, emphasis put on that because I'm not necessarily. I just don't see a situation unless they completely tank between now and the trade deadline that they would be willing to move him. And it, just to me, it doesn't make absolutely no sense if they are serious
Right.
about competing this season.
Well, yeah, or unless like, what if there's some? Is there a trade that trading Jake Gensel makes you better?
That's what to me. That's what I don't see how there is.
I just don't really, yeah, I don't really necessarily see a scenario where trading Jake Gensel makes you better. Like, because a team that's trying to acquire him is not a team, that's a team that's in the playoffs, and teams aren't
Yes.
necessarily giving up great players. You don't really see that anymore. I don't even know if you ever necessarily did ever see it, but teams giving up great players for great players at the trade deadline.
Not really, no.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I was just curious what your thoughts were on this. I guess it's a first round pick, a top prospect, and a roster ready player, which I think that's like a decent that's the return you'd want for a guy like Jake if the team was tanking. But it's definitely ruffling some feathers I see on Twitter. People are already pretty much I've seen graphics of him already printed in a Vancouver Canucks uniform.
Yeah, yeah. I saw it just had like it's like everybody was focusing on Vancouver and yeah, I mean, if they want to give us a roster ready player, whatever Quinn Hughes is up to these days,
Yeah, exactly.
sure. Again, but like remember that for if that's coming from if that first round pick's coming from a team that's going to make the playoffs, that's going to be a late first round pick,
Basically a
and
second round pick.
yeah. So again, this draft will not be as deep as last year. So you take that with a grain of salt as too. A first round pick sounds good, but you have to look at what the pool of potential players that you're going to be drafting from is.
100%. I think that's something that gets forgotten a lot when they hear, oh, well, they got at least a first and a second rounder. It's like, dude, that team is picking in the last five of the draft, anyways. It's
Yeah.
basically two second rounders.
Yep.
Um, I was also thinking we on our mailbags we got a lot of hype or a lot of scenarios, a lot of suggestions of maybe trading for a right winger from Vancouver, and I think a couple of times we touched on maybe a Raquel for a Brock Besser, who was it would have been buying low on Brock Besser. I think he's got like 30 goals this year. I think he's having like a
Oh,
hell of a
he's having an
season.
insane season. Yeah.
He's like potentially in the Rocket
Yeah.
running. Like, oh man, how are Penguins fans feeling about those hypotheticals now?
Yeah. Yeah. I know that name was tossed around last year, and yeah, Besser did not have a great year last year. Could have been someone you bought low on, but obviously, neither here nor there at this point. He did not come to Pittsburgh, and he's having a career resurgence at in the Pacific. Well, I guess
Yep,
it's
the
not the
Pacific
northwest
North.
of Canada, but
Right. Oh,
Pacific
that's.
Northwest um, area ish. If you're American,
I never thought about that. Vancouver's the southwest of
yeah,
Canada.
south, yeah, Pacific Southwest of Canada, Pacific Northwest
They're
of
the San Diego of
basically,
Canada,
yeah,
which
yes,
is
they are,
hilarious.
yeah, different weather, but yes,
A little bit different weather.
yeah.
It's like 11 degrees out here. But anyways,
Oh, geez.
um, I'm distracted. What were we? We were talking about hypotheticals. So, anyways, the Penguins lost to Carolina, and that stung quite a bit. Who do they play next and when?
So a little bit of a schedule change here. The Penguins will are scheduled to play Monday, Martin Luther King Day. They were originally scheduled to play at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Due to the change of the Pittsburgh Steelers playoff game, that time has now been moved up to 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Still in Pittsburgh, still on Monday. Everything else is the same location, but the game will be played at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Pacific. That is AM, not PM. Um, so yeah, if you're at work, maybe find a VPN that you can log on to if you're able. I know some people are off on Monday. I am not one of them, so I will have to find a way to watch that game. As for a recap, we will talk about that on Monday. How we want to do that because yeah, a lot's going on Monday now. So, but the Penguins are at 1 o'clock. Everything the same location, teams, um, and then they are off the rest of the week until they head out to the desert next weekend for a desert double against the Golden Knights and Coyotes. So, only really one game early this week, and then pretty much nothing the rest of the week. But
Is it
yeah,
All Star
just
break?
no, they have
Oh.
All Star break is the last week of January.
Oh, okay. Just a
Yeah,
random spot in the schedule. They don't play for like
it's just
four
like a
days.
like a gap. Yep.
Oh, I hate those days. But
Yeah, just kind of a empty hole there.
alrighty. Well, yeah, a little bit of or who are the Steelers playing in the playoffs?
Buffalo.
Oh, because they're having like a winter storm right now.
Yeah, it is pretty intense from videos I've seen. So the game got moved to Monday, and um, yeah, so yes, Penguins got moved to 1 p.m. Same location, same team. So just a little heads up, and we'll
So
determine how we want to do a review or
1
recap.
p.m. 1 p.m. Eastern time.
Eastern time. Yep.
So dang, I actually have to be up and at 'em on Monday to watch that game. I'm not doing shit on Monday. I got nothing. I got nothing going on. So I'll be
That's
in my drawers watching the game in bed
yep.
probably.
Yep. That's how it goes.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Snell, do you have anything left before we wrap this up?
Nope. I think we've had enough. I think it's enough for tonight.
All right. Yeah. So the Penguins, 3-2 overtime losers in Carolina tonight. They do get a point, but drop the ultimate decision in overtime. Next game is Monday, now at 1 p.m. against the Seattle Kraken. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good rest of your weekend and stay warm.
Happy MLK.